Good morning. Welcome to the Circle. Welcome to Southminster Steinhauer. Welcome to those of you who find yourselves at home, and welcome equally to those of you who are here for the first time or the first time in a long time. We make space for you. There's always space. There's a place in this circle for all of us. All of our sizes, ages, colors, genders, sexualities, religions, or none, or many. And may we find together a welcome and safe place to enter here, into whatever we need this morning, into exploring, into being at one with each other, with the world, with the cosmos, exploring, grieving, celebrating, wherever we are. We come this morning as we are, and we're welcome just that way. There are many in our community that are traveling. There are many in our community that are going through life transitions, and there are some in our community who are suffering and challenged. Our thoughts and our prayers are with them, and especially with Trudy Smith, who this week had emergency open heart surgery, and who's now still in critical condition in the University Hospital. So our hearts are with her, and we know that we send her our best and our most health-filled feelings, heart energies, and prayers this morning. In gratitude for who we are together, for this place and for this land, for the inheritance that we share with our Treaty 6 brothers and sisters, our Métis friends, and all who call this their ancestral and adopted home, we find honor in expressing gratitude. It's the first thing on our lips and on our minds as we gather. Gratitude for being able to live our commitments to peace and to reconciliation and to relationship. As we move into our time together this morning in our second week of using the wisdom of Indigenous tradition of the 7 sacred teachings, or elders' teachings, we use these to guide our exploration of 7 values on which life can be lived with sacredness and connection. Using the 7 art panels that we commissioned from Indigenous artist Arthur Gallant, we add to our first panel of humility from last week by this week exploring our second teaching, the teaching of truth. Arthur has painted this panel with a background of a night electrical storm and the face of a young woman. And we use it as an entryway into the value of truth that we live in our lives. And it's with this wisdom of our own experience and the wisdom of story and prayers and all that we share together that we live into this practice of listening, of hearing, of perceiving deeply in our hearts, of walking the path of the spiritual journey together. So as we do it, may we open our hearts, gather in song as we come fully into this place.
We open our hearts. And we light this candle in gratitude for the gift of light, knowing we are creatures of light, born into it and ever seeking it. Knowing we receive with gratitude the gift of this day's light, a day we've never seen before. As we open in this circle to the gift of light, we seek light in the wisdom of our stories, in the wisdom of our lived experience, in the wisdom of the natural world, in the wisdom of the best of our teachings, of the traditions of our indigenous people, and all the wisdom traditions that have shaped our human experience. And we open to the light of light that is within us. No darkness can extinguish. We come in this day with one another, with many prayers within us, some for which we can wrap words around, many others we have only sighs or sounds or silence. We come offering some words given to us by Stan McKay, first Indigenous moderator of the United Church of Canada from Fisher River Cree Nation in Manitoba. Stan served as moderator of the United Church from 1994 until 1997, giving leadership nationally to us as a denomination. He offers these words, which also give expression to the 7 sacred teachings of his tradition and of many Aboriginal traditions. We pray with one another. We come with thanksgiving for our very breath, the warmth of sun and the sustaining waters, for life all around us, the plants, soft grasses, and sheltering trees, for the ones that crawl, those that swim, and those that fly, for the four-legged and the two-legged, all our relations. We celebrate the diversity in creation as reflected in the 4 winds from the 4 directions. We especially honor the many peoples with their many gifts for understanding our shared life on the earth. We strive to live out the 7 sacred teachings: respect, love, honesty, courage, humility, wisdom, truth. These teachings enable us to live in harmony with ourselves, with our neighbors, and with all the created earth. May it be so. Amen.
This morning, as our time for all ages, we're going to read a story, and we don't have a carpet today. We're going to invite you to stay. We're going to, or come. You can go wherever you want, Liam. We are going to read the story from here. You can see some pictures there, but if you want to stay there, you can stay there. It's up to you. This story is entitled Old Turtle and the Broken Truth. It's a story by Douglas Wood with watercolors by John J. Muth.
Wisdom comes from many sources, and perhaps the storytelling in our traditions that we have so valued among our Indigenous people is captured to a certain extent in this story, a story for all of us. Once in a beautiful faraway land, there was somehow, not so very far, a land where every stone was a teacher, and every breeze was a language, and every lake was a mirror, and every tree a ladder to the stars.
Into this far and lovely land there fell a truth. It streaked down from the stars, trailing a tail as long as the sky, but as it fell, it broke. One of the pieces blazed off through the night sky, and the other fell to the earth in the beautiful land. In the morning, Crow found the fallen piece. It seemed to be the sort of stone, shiny and pleasing to the eye. She picked it up.
"This is a lovely truth," said Crow. "I'll keep it." And she carried it away. But after she'd held it for a while and examined it closely, somehow it didn't feel quite right to her. A part of it was missing. "I'll look for the whole one," she said. And she flew off and dropped the piece of truth to the ground.
Other creatures who liked shiny things soon noticed the truth as well. Fox, coyote, raccoon, each picked it up and carried it a while. But they too found that it had rough edges and was difficult to carry. And its sparkle soon lost its appeal. "We don't need this broken truth," they said. "We'll find a whole one." After a while, none of the creatures even noticed the broken truth anymore, and it lay on the ground, forgotten.
And then a human found it. He was walking slowly, listening to breezes, gazing at beauties above and below and all around him when he found the broken truth. On it was writing, and the writing said, "You are loved." And the man held it carefully, thinking it was the loveliest thing he'd ever seen. He tucked the broken truth into a safe place and kept it. Sometimes he'd take it out and admire it, and the truth sparkled just for him, and it whispered a message to him alone, and the man thought he never felt so proud and so happy.
The man took the wonderful truth to his people, those who lived with him, who spoke as he spoke and dressed as he dressed, and whose faces looked like his face. And together they cherished their newfound truth, and they believed in it. They hugged it to themselves, and it became their most important possession.
After a while, the man and his people didn't hear the language of breezes and stones anymore. They had only their truth. They didn't see the mirrored beauty in the lakes or the ladders to the stars. They just saw their sparkling truth. And for them, it was enough. And they called it the truth. And the truth made people feel good and proud and strong, but they soon began to feel fear and even anger towards those who weren't like themselves and didn't share their truth. The other beings and the other people of the lovely land seemed less and less important. And the language of the breezes, well, it was hardly heard anymore.
Time passed, and other people said, "We must have this great truth for ourselves, for with it comes happiness and power. So many battles were fought, and the broken truth was won and lost over and over again. But such was its power and beauty that no one ever doubted it. And when they were without it, they felt a great emptiness where their truth had been. The stones and trees suffered, the breezes and waters suffered, and the animals and the earth, and most of all, the people suffered.
Finally, the animals went to Old Turtle, ancient and wise as the mountains and seas themselves. The people quarrel over, they said. We've all held it ourselves. It's broken and it doesn't work. Please tell the people. I'm sorry, said Old Turtle, but the people won't listen. They're not ready yet. And the suffering continued.
Until one day, a little one came to find Old Turtle. She'd traveled very far, had crossed the mountains of imagining and the river of wondering why, and had found her way through the forest of finding out. And when she had grown tired, she'd ridden on the backs of animals or the wings of birds, and they helped her find her way. And finally, they came to a great hill in the very center of the world, and from there the little one thought that she'd never seen so far or seen so much beauty. But when she saw Old Turtle, she could hardly speak. She simply looked with eyes full of wonder.
Why have you come so far to find me, little one? Asked Old Turtle. Her voice rumbled like faraway thunder, but was still soft as the breeze through a caterpillar's whiskers.
I want to ask a question, answered the little one. Where I live, the earth is sore, and people are suffering, and battles are fought over and over again, and people say it's always been this way and will never change. Can it change, Old Turtle? Can we make it change?
The world you describe is not the world that has always been. Then Old Turtle told of how the people had found the broken truth and the suffering it had caused. It's because it's so close to a great whole truth that it has such beauty and that the people love it so much. But it's the lost portion of the broken truth that the people need, if the world is ever to be made whole again.
But where is the missing piece? Asked the little one. Can we put this truth back together again?
First, my child, said Old Turtle, remember there are truths all around us and within us. They twinkle in the night sky and they bloom upon the earth. They fall upon us every day, silent as the snow and gentle as the rain. The people, clenching their one truth, forget that this is a part of all the small and lovely truths of life. They no longer see these truths, no longer hear them, but perhaps you, little one, perhaps you can.
I'll try, said the little one. And she thought once more of her long journey, and she looked upon all the beauty that surrounded her. From the far hills to the flowers beneath her feet, she saw the movement of clouds and the soaring of birds and the dancing of light. And gradually, a feeling came over her as though all the world were made of truths, as if the world had been made just for her and she'd been made for it. And she felt a secret smile somewhere deep inside and thought that perhaps she understood. Looking once again at Old Turtle, her eyes more filled with wonder than ever before.
Remember this also, little one. The broken truth and life itself will be mended only when one person meets another. Someone from a different place, someone with a different face, someone with different ways, and sees and hears herself. Only then will people know that every person, every being is important, and that the world was made for each of us. For a long time, these two friends were quiet, high on their hill in the center of the world. And in her heart, the little one thought she could see other people in beautiful lands, people with other ways, other truths, people different, but somehow people.
Finally, the little one asked one more question. Old Turtle, how will the people learn these things?
By seeking out these small and simple truths all around them, by listening once more to the language of breezes, by learning lessons from the stones and the animals and the trees and the stars, and even from turtles and little ones. Now's the time for you to go, to return to your people and tell them what you've seen and learned, and help them mend their broken truths. And take this with you. Old Turtle placed something in the little one's hand. I've saved it for a very long time, for someone just like you.
The little one looked at what Old Turtle had given her. It was a kind of a stone, a mysterious, beautiful stone. It was lovely to touch, and it made her feel good to hold it. She squeezed it tightly and then tucked it away for her journey. "Thank you, Old Turtle," she said, and hugged her friend's great leathery neck, and then started home. Once more, she traveled through the forest of finding out, crossed the river of wondering why, and the mountains of imagining. Crow led the way, and again, when the little one grew tired, all her animal friends helped. She sometimes touched the stone Old Turtle had given her to renew her strength, and it took a long time, yet almost no time at all. And she was home.
It had been a very long journey. And those who take journeys of the heart are forever changed. The people didn't recognize her, and when she spoke, they didn't understand. She told them of her journey, but the people couldn't follow her words. She spoke of a world made of small and gentle truths, of all people being one people, but they couldn't catch her meaning. She explained about the broken truth and the need to make it whole, but people didn't believe her and couldn't understand.
Finally, Crow, seeing all that had happened, flew to the place high above the village where the great truth was kept, in a place where all could see it. He cawed and cawed in his loudest voice, and suddenly the little one knew what to do. She climbed to the high place herself. She took Old Turtle's stone from her pocket and carefully added the missing piece to the old broken one. The fit was perfect. The people looked and looked and looked. It said, "You are loved, and so are they." Some frowned, some smiled, some even laughed, and some cried, and they began to understand.
And time passed upon this beautiful land, and the trees climbed like ladders to the stars, and the waters shone like mirrors, and the people saw their beauty. A breeze stirred, and they heard its music. And tiny truths fell day by day, gentle as rain and snow. And people found them and kept them in their hearts. And slowly, as the people met other people different from themselves, they began to see themselves.
And not far away, on a hill, in the very center of the world, Old Turtle smiled.
May we find wisdom for our living.
Justice and peace, we live.
Some more wisdom for us to share this morning. 3 parables about seeking wisdom in the spiritual life. Jesus said, "The spiritual life is like treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and hid, and then in their joy goes and sells all that they have to buy that field." Jesus said, "Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? When he's found it, he lays it on his shoulders and rejoices. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost.'" Jesus said, "A woman had 10 silver coins and found that she had lost one of them. She proceeded to light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she found it. When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost.'" These are evocative stories about the spiritual life as told in the Jesus tradition. May we find wisdom for our living. The scariest moment of my parenting life was losing our child in West Edmonton Mall. We were juggling 3 young children, and many of you know this drill. We turned our back for a second. And he or she must have gone one way while we went the other, and I hurried back to where I think the problem happened. I searched the intersections, I searched the escalators, and I looked for this wandering 6-year-old, and all the while panicking and thinking the worst. Because that's what we do. We think the worst. Someone took him. He's somewhere we'll never find him. How could we have let this happen? And it's moments like that that make you realize just what you do to find what or who you've lost. That story ended in relief, as most of these stories do, with a kind person noticing him and taking him or her to a place where we could be reunited. Too late, I know. I'll get it later. The spiritual writings that we inherit as part of our tradition are full of images of searching. We have stories, looking back even further in our text, we have stories of whole communities wandering for years in search of their homeland. In some of these readings shared today, we're told of a woman searching for a coin, a shepherd looking for a lost sheep. In one we didn't read, we're told of a woman searching for living water at a well. All these stories of searching. To what lengths will we go to seek what we need? In my estimation, the spiritual life is a life in search of meaning. This is, to me, one of the greatest purposes of our lives, to discover meaning in our life, to make meaning of our experiences, and to make meaning of a world that often doesn't make sense to us. If you don't have a way of making meaning in life, of sorting out our priorities and our values, of helping to put a framework around what we experience in this world, then our days can very easily become an exercise in spinning our wheels and not going anywhere, except by accident. Life becomes a confusion without direction, and life looks like a snowstorm with your high beams on. Such is our need for meaning and purpose in life, so much so that our brains are wired to find patterns, even in randomness, so that we can make sense of things. We want to create some kind of order, some kind of meaning out of our experience. So in our search for meaning, then, we're constantly looking, we're constantly seeking and searching. We find, and then we seek some more. Never fully knowing, never arriving at the destination, but always looking. And that is the spiritual life. It's a definition. Perhaps mine, perhaps others. It's a definition of the spiritual life. A constant exploration. With the hope that it not only leads to a sense of meaning, but that sense of meaning can then lead to a modicum of transformation, that we might ourselves be changed and impact the growth and transformation of our communities and our world. And that's what makes it exciting in this lifelong quest to make meaning. Because it means something to us, to our lives, that we could change. And that our change could change others and the world. That's also what makes it so challenging. The spiritual life is not an easy one, because we challenge ourselves and we keep seeking. There are some religious streams within every major religion that would promote and teach that through enough practice, through enough faith, through enough study, we will attain all that we need to attain. A continual seeking and searching is really just a sign of deficiency to those streams. All that's needed is the answer book or deeper prayer or closer observance. Just have faith. Just rest in the truth, with a capital T, by the way. And all will be found there, and beyond that, nothing more is needed. Now, we all wouldn't be a part of a community like this if we didn't recognize the folly and absurdity of that approach, because that requires us to ignore the questions that bubble up inside of us, even from the time of being a child and wondering about why things are the way they are. That would require us to ignore our innate human curiosity to discover, our questions, our curiosity, our doubts, our inquiries that have us question, to question tradition, to question dogma, to question everything, to weigh them against reason, against scientific knowledge, against social knowledge, against our own experience. Because we know the value of the wisdom that comes to us from every discipline. And rather than being in conflict with our spiritual journey, we know how all these things work in partnership with each other to formulate what's important and what's valuable to us. So the spiritual life is the seeking and searching of always better ways, even if we find ourselves most of the time in a place of wondering and questioning, a place of, I don't know. William Osler, Canadian scientist of the last century, said this: "No human being is constituted to know the truth, the whole truth. And even the best of us must be content with fragments, with partial glimpses, never the full fruition." These stories of searching that we inherit in our tradition, the woman seeking the coin, which comes just after the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep to go in search of the one, which comes directly after another one, the prodigal father who welcomes home the errant son. All of these stories are easy for us to revert back to an old capital T truth that many of us were told. According to the, in my opinion, lazy Christian tradition that some of us once knew and embraced, that the truth, capital T, all answers will be provided kind of tradition, we were told that these stories are allegories that tell us that we are the lost ones. I remember Sunday school classes that talked about this story that God is like the woman who will search tirelessly for you. That God is the shepherd who will seek after his lost sheep. That God is that prodigal father who will sweep and search and run and find us and save us. But you know, it reminds me of the old Hasidic tale that goes like this. The devil once went for a walk. He was with a friend, and they saw a man ahead of them stoop down and pick something up off the ground. "What did the man find?" asked the friend. "A piece of truth," said the devil. "Doesn't that disturb you?" asked the friend. "No," said the devil, "I shall let him make a belief out of it." It's a similar theme from Old Turtle. If the purpose for us in the spiritual life is for us to find meaning in life and in the world, and if we can make meaning of our lives and our place in the world, then we can work towards that transformation. If that's one of our goals, then these stories then tell us something profound. Not about us being lost, not about our constant need to be saved or found. These stories talk to us about our very human nature, our need and our quest to seek, to look, to search, to explore, to pursue, and of finding our own pieces of truth that have meaning and purpose for us. And in that sense, speaking our own truth, as Arthur has put on our banner, speaking our own truth is easier than speaking anyone else's. Speaking our own truth is easier than speaking the truth anyone expects you to speak. Speaking our own truth is easier than speaking easy dogma or tradition. That personal piece of truth, our truth, is what the spiritual life is after. It's our own part of the puzzle that makes sense for us. Not to make a belief out of, but to inform our living and to center our values. That's the spiritual life. If you feel like you're always wondering, if you feel like you're always thinking, but what if you feel like you're always asking, what's next, then you're right in the midst of a mature spiritual life. And we should congratulate ourselves. Why shouldn't the truth we find and the truth we seek change as we change? Why shouldn't those pieces of truth that we hold on to have rough edges so that other ones will come and sit next to them and fit together with them? Why shouldn't the meaning we make of our lives and our world change as our circumstances change, or as we receive new wisdom, or as our world changes and becomes more complicated? Let's be honest, what worked for us 10 years ago may not work for us today. May not work for us tomorrow. So if we're honest about being in the spiritual life, we'll know that tomorrow will bring its own seeking, its own questioning, and its own finding. So much so that when we find something new that works, we, like that woman, we, like that shepherd, will call together our friends and our family, and we'll celebrate. We'll have a party because something for us works today. Because a piece of wisdom has been found that brings meaning and purpose to our living. Our encouragement that we all might keep doing it. That we all might keep searching because it's never in vain. That we might all keep searching for meaning that gives us purpose and value, that inspires us to change every day. That we might recognize that if we change, we are already changing the world. So this morning, let's take a moment to breathe and live into the image of our search for our own truth. And as we ponder with some music, we will continue the seeking and the questioning. We'll wonder what we're seeking at this point in our life that we'd sweep the entire house to find. We'll wonder what we've been holding on to that isn't valuable to make room for something new, for a new piece of wisdom, for a new piece of our truth. We'll wonder what is our piece of meaning and truth that we'd wish to add to the mosaic of the world's wisdom, and just how do we plan to share it with the world that needs it? May it be so in so many ways.
We have life-altering moments in our lives, all of us. When I was a young seminary student walking to class one day, to a class in systematic theology, as though there were something systematic about this thing we call theology. A very disillusioned time in my life, wondering about the purpose of the church and spiritual communities. I passed a church that had a wayside pulpit, and on its sign it said, "Have all your answers questioned here." And I thought that was a spiritual community I could be part of. And I wondered if there were any greater reason to be part of a spiritual community than to keep our truths under quest, to keep our answers provisional and tentative, to keep our certainties in check. And so we go with one another in the light of our lived experiences, in the light of our wisdom, in the light of our quest, taking with us the light that is within us, beyond us, between us, around us. Wisdom that calls to us in the natural world, wisdom that speaks to us in the best of our prophets and teachers, wisdom that comes to us each day in our openness to live the great questions. And so we go with one another, knowing we have strength. We can do it.